Hey, it's Kay. Welcome back to Book Club. Today we're going to be talking about Quicksilver by Callie Hart. So, the second book in this series just came out, and I reread the first book. It was not as enjoyable the second time as it was the first time, so drop me a like because I deserve it. If you haven't read Quicksilver, I think you'll probably be able to follow along with this video too. I'm gonna get pretty in depth. Let's get started. So, this book starts in the city of Zilvarin. This is a desert city with two suns. There's like a huge economic and class disparities in the city. It's like in the same city, there'll be people that are like starving, and then there are people that are like rich as hell, also. And it doesn't have to be like that. It's like that because of the immortal queen, Queen Madra. She has been the queen for about 1,000 years. Everyone in Zilvarin is human, and they're all separated into wards. And then the queen will like hoard all the resources like food and water and decide like which wards get good rations and which ones get bad rations. The poorest ward is the third ward. And that is where our main character, Saeris Fane, is from. She's lived there her entire life. She's now 24 years old. In the beginning of the book, she goes into like the hub and she steals a piece of golden armor from one of the guards. Saeris and her little brother Hayden, they're both homeless. They have basically nothing. So, with the stolen armor, she's gonna melt it down into like little pieces of gold and use the money to go as far as she can. She goes back to the third ward to find her brother, and she finds him outside of a tavern. He was banned from entering because he got into a fight while he was in there, so she makes him hold on to the armor that she stole while she goes inside. This is where we meet Carrion Swift, and he is a cocky, flirtatious little redhead. We learned pretty quickly that him and Saris had a one night stand, like, I don't know, like a few months ago. And she keeps on thinking about like how insane of a lay he was, like a 10 out of 10 in bed. Good for him, I guess. But yeah, Carrion, he confronts Saris because he's heard that someone from the third ward has stolen golden armor from one of the guards. He's like, oh, if you did steal it, I can help you hide it. Saris isn't sure what she's going to do. She doesn't really say yes or no. She ends up leaving the tavern. And when she goes outside, her brother Hayden is not there anymore. So she's like, oh my god. He has the armor, so I need to find him. There are guards in the third ward looking for her and looking for the armor. They see her and they start chasing her. She finds her brother who was already cornered by a bunch of the guards. And she's like, guys, like, leave him alone. It was me. I took the armor. Just let him go. She ends up fighting some of the guards too before she like gives herself up. And even though the guards are like very highly trained and skilled fighters, she ends up killing like a couple of them. It's very impressive. She shouldn't have been able to do that, you know. The guards, they let Hayden go. They take the armor back and they take Saris to the queen's palace because she is going to be executed. She's brought to an empty stone hall. It's called the Hall of Mirrors. And the queen comes in there, her guard is in there, and the queen wants to know like how Saris became such a skilled fighter that she was able to take out some of her guards. And she accuses Saris of being trained by the Fae. And Saris is like, are you pulling my leg? Like, the Fae are not real. The queen is like, I think the Fae are out to get me because I banished them from the seven cities, basically from Zilvarin. As she continues to interrogate Saris, really nothing comes of it, and she's like, all right, well, kill her. She tells the guard to kill Saris, and then after that, to kill her entire ward, the third ward, including her brother. She's basically sentencing like 100,000 people that live in the third ward to death to be like an example of what happens when you steal from the queen. Like, damn, she is sadistic. So Saris is in the Hall of Mirrors with the guard, and she gets gravely injured by him. He is about to give her like one last like killing blow, but he's not able to bring his sword any closer to Saeris. Turns out Saeris can manipulate the metal in the sword. We'll find out why she can do this, but basically, the sword melts and like slips through the guard's fingers, and she can kind of command it to go wherever she wants. In the Hall of Mirrors is a platform, so she steps up onto the platform. There's like an ancient sword sticking out of the stone. She grabs it, she's able to remove it from the stone, and when she does, it starts turning into a pool of silver that she starts to sink into. She's in the silver pool and she says that death emerges from the pool. I'm gonna read it. Emerging from the silver, the huge figure rose up from the pool as if ascending from the very depths of hell itself. Broad shoulders, wet, shoulder length black hair, tall, taller than any other man I'd ever seen. His eyes shone an iridescent, shimmering green, the pupil of the right eye rimmed by the same shining metallic silver that ran in ribbons from the black leather armor that covered his chest and arms. So she thinks it's death come to take her because she's already been like gravely injured. She's not gonna survive her injuries. And she thinks that death is devastatingly beautiful. And then Death looks at her and says that she's pathetic. Death puts his own necklace around Saeris's neck and carries her into the pool. So about 10 days pass with her unconscious before she wakes up, and she wakes up in a very luxurious room. It turns out that she is in Evalia. She is in the Winter Palace. So remember that Saeris, she had taken that sword out of the stone? So that sword is important. It'll come up later. But just know that death came to Saeris because that sword was calling to him. This is when we meet a Fae woman named Lane. We learn that Lane is 1400 years old. She barely looks any older than Saeris, who's 24. So magical things are afoot. Lane is the princess of the Avalian court, and her dad is named Belicon. He is the king. Lane tells her that her dad needs to speak to Saeris, so Lane and Saeris they go to the king. King Belicon has the sword that Saeris had taken from the Hall of Mirrors. The king explains to her that when the solid ground turned into silver, it was because she had woken the Quicksilver and turned it into a portal. So the pool of Quicksilver that she had made was a portal. And the king says that he will not allow her to go home until she can figure out how to waken the Quicksilver and open more portals for him. And she wants to complain, but really it's not a good idea because King Belicon, if you don't listen to him, there will be consequences. So Lane tells her to be quiet and they stay in the throne room when Death is brought into the room as well. Saeris says that he is acting feral, unhinged, violent, and mindless. This boy's name is Kingfisher. How unfortunate. Fisher is Lane's half brother. They have the same mom. Lane explains to Saeris that King Belicon had accused Fisher's dad of stealing all the Quicksilver because that sword in the Hall of Mirrors belonged to Fisher's dad. Okay? The sword's name is Solace. King Belicon had Fisher's dad killed and then forced Fisher's mom to marry him, and then that's when they had Lane. So Kingfisher, he's brought into the throne room, and Belicon wants to kill him, but an oracle there says like you actually can't kill him now because the gods command it so. This is when we meet Renfis. He is the general of the Avalian army. He storms into the throne room and he tells King Belicon that he's come to claim Kingfisher as their weapon in the war against the Sanas-Rothians. The Avalian Fae are at war with Sanas-Rothians, who are vampires, a vampire court. Renfis explains that they need Kingfisher on the front lines, and King Belicon, he acquiesces. He allows Renfis to claim Kingfisher, and they also grant Kingfisher his sanity back by giving him back his necklace. Remember, he gave Saeris the necklace so that they can go into the Quicksilver pool? Yeah, he needs it back in order to be sane. So they give it back to him, and he starts to collect himself. So the next day, Renfis, Fisher, Lane, and Saeris are in the library. They explain to Saeris that she is an alchemist because only an alchemist has the power to waken or manipulate Quicksilver. In this world, alchemy is just like elemental magic. So the element that Saeris can manipulate is Quicksilver, as far as we know right now. When they're done in the library, Fisher takes Saeris to the forge where they will be experimenting with the Quicksilver, and the forge is in like horrible condition. It's like run down as hell. So they have to like fix it up. We learn more about the Quicksilver. Kingfisher tells her that the Quicksilver is sentient and it's extremely dangerous. When it comes into contact with bare skin, it will push that person past the bounds of sanity. That's why Kingfisher has like a feral state to him, a mindless state to him. It's because he had went into a Quicksilver pool without having his relic on. He tells us that Quicksilver pools are portals between realms. He tells us when one pool is activated, they are all activated. As we are interacting with this group of people through Saeris's point of view, we kind of see that Fisher is like a dickhead. He's just moody, he's emo, and he's cynical. Like hot, mean, older, best friend's brother type situation. He starts calling her Osha, which she thinks is like a taunt or like a jab at her. So the next day in the forge, I don't know who Saeris was feeling like when she said this, but she asks Fisher how big his is. Like out of nowhere. Girl, stop. Shut up. Fisher's response to her asking him this, I'm gonna put it on the screen. I don't think I could say this out loud, but it's just crazy. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Moving on, they're still in the forge, and he grabs her hand and puts something in it, and then like wraps his hand around her hand so she can't open it. And she starts feeling like extreme pain from her hand. She's screaming and telling him to let her go, but he doesn't listen to her. And he tells her to listen, just listen to what's in her hand. She starts hearing it chanting Anarath more. We don't know what that means. We don't know why it's chanting that. He lets her go. What he had been making her hold on to was Quicksilver. He just told us that it was dangerous to come in contact with your bare skin. And he's like, oh, well, I was holding on to you, so you were perfectly safe. Saeris punches Fisher in the face for doing that to her. And, I think that's well deserved. Good for her. Next morning, Fisher comes into her room to eat breakfast, and she gets turned on because she had split his lip when she punched him, and he had like licked the blood off of his lip, and she got a flash of his canines because they have fangs, and she got real turned on by that. Fisher was like, "Oh, be careful because um Fae have a really strong sense of smell, so he can smell that she's turned on." Cool, 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 cool. Saeris goes to the library again with the usual suspects: Renfis, Lane, and Kingfisher. Really, nothing goes on in the library, but she does find out that there are different Quicksilver pools located obviously throughout different realms, but there's one in the Avalian Palace that she's in like the bowels of the palace. So she stores that in her brain for later. Then she goes to the forge with Kingfisher. He wants her to work on making more relics like his necklace and his ring so that more people are able to travel via the Quicksilver pools without being infected by the Quicksilver bug. So they're basically experimenting. They're like trying to bind different types of metals to the Quicksilver to see if anything works. Whatever they have to do to make a relic, because they don't know. So they're working hard in this scorching hot forge, and they both get really hot and sweaty. So Fisher takes off his shirt. Saeris thinks that he's the most beautiful thing she's ever seen. Like, ew. Just because, like, when I first read this book, all I had to go off of for like what Fisher looked like was the cover. Do you think that boy is cute? Would you let him talk to you any type of way that he wanted to? Because no, absolutely not. I'm not hungry. She asked to see his relic. She wants to hold on to it to see if she can feel what else is in the relic besides the Quicksilver. He sits down and she comes and stands in between his legs. She wants him so bad. She feels like she needs to like sniff him, like inhale his scent in. He says that he can hear her heartbeats. He like puts his hand in the middle of her chest and he's like, your heart beats like so fast when you look at me, girl. He says that if he her the way he imagined doing it right now, she wouldn't survive it. He says that he knows that she wants to touch him. They share their first kiss. Yeah, if you wanted a slow burn, you were in the wrong place. Having a full on steamy makeout scene in the forge. Here we go. Climbs into his lap and she sneakily steals one of his relics. He leaves her alone in the forge and she starts running through the castle, going as far down as she can so that she can hopefully find the Quicksilver pool, make it back home to Zilvarin, and try to save her brother. She gets to the bottom of the palace and she starts hearing the Quicksilver. It's like urging her to come and find it. Following the voice of the Quicksilver, she's able to reach the pool, but before she can go in, freaking Kingfisher finds her. He's so mad at her. He tells her that the relic that she stole, it wasn't actually even a relic. It was just a magical ring. It would not have protected her from the Quicksilver, so she actually would have died had she entered that pool. She's like, okay, well, I have to go back to Sylvarin to get my brother. Like, what do you not understand? His life is in danger because Queen Maja already said that she was gonna kill my entire ward. So I have to go and get him. Kingfisher makes a deal with her. They make a blood oath. So it kind of binds them both to this contract. He says that he will go to Zilvarin and try to get Hayden and bring him back into Evalia. And in exchange for doing that, Saeris will have to offer any assistance that he requests of her and do anything that he tells her to do. Saeris agrees to these terms. Fisher goes into the Quicksilver. She waits the hour. She awakens the Quicksilver, and Fisher comes back. And guess who Fisher has brought back with him from Zilvarin? It's not Hayden. He brought Carrion. Well, Carrion is like passed out. And Saeris is like, what the hell is this? Kingfisher is like, well, this is the best that I could do. I upheld my end of the deal, so now you have to uphold yours. She actually does have to do whatever he says. So he says that they're going to leave the palace tonight. Kingfisher, he goes and he steals Solace from King Belicon, and then they take off into the night on horseback. Carrion is passed out on the back of Kingfisher's horse, and Saeris has her own horse. They're traveling through the woods. It's kind of creepy, kind of scary. She's getting spooked. But eventually they end up at a pub where they will be waiting for Renfist to show up. The pub sequence is kind of cool because there's a bunch of different creatures and different types of fae in the pub. So there are pixies, dryads, brownies, sprites, satyrs, nymphs, banshees. Yeah, cool. So they're waiting for Renfist. Eventually he shows up and their final destination is Callish. And in order to get there, they're going to go through something called a shadow gate. As they're leaving the pub, everyone in the pub starts to recognize Fisher and Renfist, and it turns out that these two are like legendary warriors. Their clout is insane. Everyone in the pub is like glazing them. They're like, oh, thank you for saving my family. Thank you for saving my village. Da 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 da. Kingfisher and Renfist are living legends. And of course, they're just so humble about it. We go through the Shadow Gate. They end up in Callish. Callish is Fisher's hometown. It's where he grew up, and they're staying in his childhood home. When they get there, Carrion is awake And Saeris is like, what the hell? Why did you tell Fisher that you were my brother? And he's like, oh, I thought I was saving your brother from this man. I didn't know what he was going to do. I took one for the team. Carrion also says that Fisher would have never found Hayden because he had moved Hayden from the third ward after they took Saeris to get executed. Because Carrion knew that the queen would eventually send the guards after Hayden anyway, so he had moved Hayden to another ward. Hayden has a job, he's clothed, he's fed, he's doing well. So that eases some of Saeris's anxieties for now. So now that Saeris has entered into that blood oath with Fisher, he tells her that she has to make enough relics for all of the warriors in his army, and then he will allow her and Carrion to return to Zilvarin. Okay, so he's basically given her an impossible task because she has to make about 15,000 relics, and she hasn't even been able to make one. There's a forge in Fisher's home, and she starts to try and make the relics again, doing experiments, and she has had zero luck, absolutely no luck at all. So that night, Saeris and Fisher have dinner together, and he teases her about why Carrion smelled like her. Fisher can smell her arousal, her pheromones, whatever, and apparently Carrion still smelled of her from that one night stand months ago. Bro, ew. As they're having dinner, they are attacked by Sanis-Rothians. The Evalian army is at war with the Sanis-Rothian army. They're attacked by monsters called feeders. The feeders are like very similar to zombies. They're like mindless. They have one goal, and that is to attack and feed. Fisher ends up killing the feeders, but Saeris does get injured. So Saeris passes out, and she wakes up in Fisher's bed in his bedroom. He uses the blood oath to command her to stay in his bed while he goes back to like the war camp where all of the soldiers are at. She's stuck in his bed for like 5 days straight. And Carrion, he gives her a little bit of company, but ultimately he annoys her. Carrion is like my favorite character. Even though he's annoying, I actually find him really funny. He really grows on you throughout the book. Eventually she can leave the bed. She continues her work in the forge. Renfis and Fisher, they return to Kalish from the war camp, and they all have dinner together. Saeris and Fisher, they're like flirt fighting at the dinner table. Renfis and Carrion are just sitting there listening. Saeris is mad at Fisher because he keeps on using the oath to command her to do stuff that she doesn't want to do, and she's like, you're disrespecting me. You're disrespecting my free will. He says that if he was evil, he would have used the blood oath to make Saeris and him. Oh my god. What the fuck? Crazy and wild thing to say at the dinner table. He starts full on dirty talking her at the table, and fucking Renfis and Carrion are there listening to the shades. And remember that they have a very strong sense of smell. So not only can Renfis hear exactly what Fisher is saying to her, he can smell that Saeris is liking it. Nasty. So the next day, they all go back to the war camp. It's called Erin, so I'm going to show it on the map. It's like by the Omnimarin Mountains, north side of the Darn, which is like a huge frozen river. So the camp is on one side of the river, and on the other side of the river is Sanisroth. So when they arrive, Renfis, he starts training, sparring with Carrion and Saeris. And Saeris is actually pretty good. Obviously, she's not better than Renfis. Renfis is the Fey General, legendary warrior himself. Eventually, Fisher finds Saeris and brings her to his tent in the war camp. It's like Harry Potter, where like the tent is just like unassuming and just like a normal tent on the outside. But then when you enter the tent, it's like a mansion inside. I love that. They're having dinner, and Saeris tells him that she's still mad at him, that he keeps on commanding her to do stuff. This prompts Fisher to grab this girl up, push her against a wall, and start kissing her. When I read this part, I was like, whoa! Slow down! Savannah, slow down! Saeris, she likes it. Intensely making out with each other. There is some petting, and he ends up biting her neck. He doesn't drink her blood, but he does draw blood from her neck, okay? And then he leaves. Saeris, she goes and she finds Ren and Carrion. They're in like a war tent with a bunch of other warriors in there. They're having like a little discussion conference. Fisher also ends up showing up in this tent, and we find out that some of the warriors are like angry at Fisher because of what had happened like 110 years ago at Gilthry. And we don't really know what happened at Gilthry. We just know that he killed everyone there and then he disappeared. We will know eventually, so just wait. One warrior is so mad at him that she goes to attack Fisher with her sword. Saeris screams like, "No!" And she shatters the warrior's sword into like a million pieces. Before anyone can really say or do anything, the war camp is attacked. Santa's Rothians, feeders, and vampires are on the other side of the Darn, and they're trying to get over the ice to get to the war camp. So on the war camp side, all of the warriors are like smashing the ice as fast as they can so that all of the Santa's Rothians will like fall into the water. They successfully smash the water, they stop the attack. This is when we meet one of our like main villains, and his name is Malcolm. He is the vampire king. He is a high fae vampire. So back in the day, the fae, they were blood cursed, so they were all vampiric at one point. They were able to break the curse. Malcolm, he chose to remain vampire. So he is the most powerful vampire. He's one of the only vampires that can actually change fae into vampire. The rest of the vampires that he makes, when they bite someone, they turn them into feeders. But yeah, nothing really comes of it. We meet Malcolm and the attack ends and everyone's okay. That night, Fisher comes to get Saeris and they use a shadow gate to go back to Kalish for the night. She tells him that she wants him to bite her. Obviously, that bite that she got in the tent was not enough. She says that she knows that there's something between them. Y'all, she asked for that fairy dip and he gives it to her. I was like alternating between listening and reading this book. When they do it for the first time, it's 25 minutes of audio listening. She spared no detail. Saeris, she gets a tattoo. She touches Fisher and tattoos from his skin flow onto her skin and she gets a permanent tattoo on her chest. She asks him about it the next day. He doesn't tell her what it means. He's being elusive about it. Like clearly he knows something that he's not saying. So she continues to work in the forge at the war camp. Carrion is like her little assistant. She finds out that the sword that she had shattered the day before was a god sword forged by the ancient Alchemarian masters. So she needs to fix the sword. Everyone's mad at her for breaking the sword. She shouldn't have been able to shatter the sword at all because it is a god sword. So let me tell you what it means, alright? The term Alchemarian just means that it was forged by an alchemist. So god swords are made with Quicksilver. The Quicksilver is able to gift the sword with magical abilities, but sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. Solace is a god sword, and Fisher's sword, named Nimarel, is also a god sword. So, in addition to learning that she needs to fix that sword, she also learns that the Avalian army, they're on the losing side of this war with the Sanazrothians. Renfis says that they have about a year to turn this thing around, or they will eventually succumb to Malcolm and his hordes. Like something has to change the game, and soon. That night, Saeris makes a warrior friend named Lorith. Lorith and Fisher are also extremely close friends. Lorith is part of like Fisher's inner circle. They're kind of like a wolf pack type of thing. A couple of nights later, Fisher comes and gets Saeris and he brings her to a little village called Ballard. They're like having a little festival. So they go together. It's like date night, you know? Saeris is enjoying her time there, enjoying the atmosphere. It's very wholesome. It's very cute. She's chatting with Fisher and she starts hearing Quicksilver chanting Anarath Moor. The Quicksilver chanting Anarath Moor, it happens a lot throughout the book. They end up staying in the village for the night. Fisher has a key to one of the houses there. We learn that his mother was from Ballard. So they go to sleep in two separate bedrooms. But Fisher starts having an episode in the middle of the night. So remember that he has taken in too much Quicksilver and it is slowly like eating away at his sanity. He has to wear the relic at all times just to keep his mind at ease, but even that is starting to like not work anymore. It's described as like waves of delirium where he is screaming at the top of his lungs. He's like writhing on the bed in pain. So Saeris enters the room with him and she gets into the bed with him. She like lays behind him. His back is like resting against her torso, saying that she's gonna be there for him. Again, she's hearing the chanting of the Quicksilver, and this goes on for about 4 hours. Him just losing his mind, and she's there trying to soothe him. She's massaging his shoulders, and she gets more tattoos from massaging his shoulders. Eventually, they fall asleep. Obviously, they wake up in the morning and they're able to speak into each other's minds now. It's not like he can hear her thoughts anytime he wants to. It's that they can speak to each other telepathically. So he's doing that while they're doing it. He bites her and drinks from her. So in the morning, when Saris wakes up, she sees that she has like hella tattoos, between 10 and 20 different tattoos. Again, she's trying to figure out why she has all these tattoos. And Fisher, he basically says she can choose to accept the tattoos if she wants them. But if she doesn't want them, then they should just disappear within a month. They go back to the war camp. Saeris returns to the forge. She's working with Carrion. She realizes that because the Quicksilver is sentient, she can just bargain with the Quicksilver in exchange for it allowing her to forge it into whatever she wants. She collects all the Quicksilver that had been shattered when she broke that sword. She's speaking with the Quicksilver and she asks like what will it take in order for the Quicksilver to allow her to forge it into another sword. And the Quicksilver says that it wants a song. So Lorith, he comes to the forge and he offers it a song, an original song that he had written about Kingfisher. Like, all right, like we get it. We don't have to keep on glazing him throughout this book. Like I get it. The Quicksilver accepts a song. The Quicksilver is forged into a really cool sword, and it claims Lorith as the warrior who will wield it. And the Quicksilver chooses to gift the sword god magic. So the sword has the magical ability of Angel's Breath, epic blue flame. This is a big win for Saeris because she just created a god sword with god magic. If she can continue to do this, they can win this war. Sadly, that night, the war camp is attacked again by the Sassy. Fisher gives Saeris his father's sword, Solace, so that they can all defend themselves as they go into this confrontation. So the vampires and the feeders, again, they're on the other side of the Darn and they're trying to cross the frozen river. The warriors in the camp, they're all again trying to break the ice on the river so that the Sassy cannot cross. They successfully break the ice, but the vampires and the feeders, they end up going into the water and then re-emerging on their side. They're coming out of the water. They're attacking the Evalian warriors. Fisher, Saeris, and Ranfis, the three of them are able to defend themselves really well. Again, it's like a battle sequence, it's action, so we're getting a lot of that. It's pretty well written. Lorith, using the god sword that Saeris had created for him, he wields it with the angel breath, and he's able to turn all of the feeders and the vampires into ash. So he basically won this battle for all of them. So they're all celebrating, but actually not good because on the other side of the Darn, they see Lane, Fisher's younger sister, being held captive by a vampire named Taladeus. Taladeus is one of the vampires that was created by Malcolm. He's gonna come up again. She is enthralled by Malcolm. What that means is that he has bitten Lane, so she is mindlessly devoted to Malcolm's needs. Taladeus tells Fisher that Malcolm wants Fisher to come and try to take Lane back from him. Malcolm really wants Fisher. It's clear that Malcolm likes Fisher as more than a friend, okay? Malcolm wants Fisher and Malcolm wants Saeris too. He wants the alchemist. So the gang, Renfis, Carrion, Fisher, Saeris, and Lorith, they go back to college. They're going to regroup and plan and try to do something to save Lane. So Saeris and Carrion, they're again back in the forge. Now that they know how to forge with the Quicksilver, Saeris finally makes a relic, thank God. The others make themselves useful by figuring out how to save Lane from her enthrallment. They're gonna need a healer to heal Lane from Malcolm's venom, and they already have a healer in college. They're also going to need a witch that has powerful blood magic because only they can break the enthrallment. They're able to find a witch named Ishabal, who is the Ball Kidder clan heir. They get her to agree to help them heal Lane. So Saeris and Carrion, they're still in the forge, and the healer comes in. Saeris notices that the healer has tattoos, very similar markings to the ones that she has gotten from touching Fisher. So she starts peppering the healer with questions about her tattoos. The healer says that she didn't magically get the tattoos. She actually had someone put the tattoos on her and her partner because unions between true mates were blessed with marks from the fates. Mate bonds, they don't even exist anymore. No one living in Avelia actually has a mate anymore. This is like historic. Also, it's not normal to have more than a couple of marks. So not only does Saeris have a mate bond, she has more markings than anyone has ever heard of. One of the marks that Saeris has is called a god binding. It's a blessing from the gods, but it's also a mark of tragedy, meaning that yes, their bond is God blessed, but typically when someone has a God binding, it means that one of them is going to die. Saeris goes and she confronts Fisher. He tells her that he knew that she was his mate from the first moment that he saw her when he went to go and get her from the Hall of Mirrors. His mom was an oracle and had drawn pictures of Saeris and said that this woman was going to come into your life and change it forever. And Fisher says that the reason why why he didn't tell her is because he doesn't want to bind her to himself because he is a sinking ship. Because he's infected by the Quicksilver, he's going to lose his mind eventually. Wearing the relic is not really helping, he's getting worse, and he just doesn't want to ruin her life by binding her to him. He plans to reject their mate bond, and Saeris does not like that at all. And I don't like that either, okay? I don't like that. I remember the first time I read that part of the book like a year ago. I was freaking devastated. I was like, no, you can't do that. How dare you reject our mate bond? Like, what the heck? We're like the only people that even have a mate. Saeris is pretty much just as devastated as I was. Even though Fisher just rejected their mate bond, him and Saeris have one last night together in Ballard because the next day they're going to have to go and confront Malcolm and they don't know what's going to happen. It might be the last night that they can have, so they're going to enjoy it. And enjoy it they do. They have a session back to back to back to back. Oh, and it's cute too. Like when they go to Ballard into that apartment, he has filled every single room with candles. So cute. While they're doing it, Fisher gets tattoos this time. So she asked him why did you get tattoos this time? And he says that it's because he's decided to accept the mate bond after all. Don't ever play with me like that again, bro. Don't you ever in your life play with me like that. Yeah, that's what I thought, okay? Why would you reject all of this? He tells her that he loves her. In the morning, Saeris wakes up and Kingfisher's not there. He's left her a note saying that he's gone to Gilthry to confront Malcolm by himself. This part is really confusing to me. Why did he go to Gilthry to confront Malcolm if Malcolm's court is in Santa's Roth in a Montreth? For some reason, there's no magic in Santa's Roth, sure, or in a Montreth, okay. There's no magic in Gilthry either. Why? Mind you, Ballard is right next to Gilthry, And Ballard has magic. Saeris is pissed off. She goes back to college and she tells the gang, so they have a plan that when Fisher sends Lane back to college through a shadow gate, they're going to go through the same shadow gate to get to Fisher. The shadow gate opens, Lane comes through. Only three of them make it through the shadow gate before it closes. Only Saeris, Carrion, and Lorith make it through. They're now in Gilthry. They find a huge amphitheater filled with about 100,000 undead, all like in the stands. They're all charred like to a crisp because that's how they died. They were burned alive, and they're all chanting Anarath more. We find out that that means release us. They're found in Gilthry pretty much immediately. They're brought to the center of the amphitheater where Fisher is. Not only is Fisher there being held captive by Malcolm, Queen Madra of Zilvarin is there, and King Belicon of Evelia is there. That those three are literally in cahoots. Like they call themselves brother and sister. This is where we get the big reveal of what happened at Gilthry. This is the point of contention for Fisher for this entire book. The Evalian army, they have been fighting with the Sanas for a very long time. They've been at war. So the Evalian army, they were fighting a smaller horde while a huge horde was attacking Gilthry. Everyone in Gilthry was dying. They were either being killed or being turned into feeders. Fisher, Renfis, and a couple more warriors, they're able to make it to Gilthry, but there's just too many vampires and feeders there for them to really make a huge difference. Fisher says he's going to go and find Malcolm and try to strike a deal so that he can save whatever's left of Gilthry. He finds Malcolm and he also finds King Belicon. He finds out that those two are working together. He strikes a deal with them, right? They said they're going to toss a coin. If the coin lands on one side, they'll spare the rest of Gilthry, and if it lands on the other side, then they'll continue what they started. And the conditions of the deal is that Fisher can't harm Malcolm or Belicon. He can't speak of the deal that they made regarding the coin, and he can't tell anyone that there's an alliance between Malcolm and Belicon. The conditions are in place until the coin lands. Fisher is already desperate to save Gilthry, so he says, sure, whatever, toss the damn coin. So Belicon tosses the coin, and Malcolm catches the coin. Fisher cannot harm Malcolm, he can't harm Belicon, he can't tell anyone about the coin toss, and he can't tell anyone that those two are in alliance because the coin never landed. So Fisher, having no choice because everyone's already dead or turning into feeders, he burns the entire town to the ground with everyone in it. Now all of the Fae of Gilthry are undead. They're like reanimated corpses. Malcolm, he takes the coin, he hides it in Gilthry, in the amphitheater, in the middle of a labyrinth that he creates. And he says that if Fisher can find the coin in the middle of the labyrinth, then he'll release all the souls of the undead Gilthry Fae. Fisher is in the labyrinth that Malcolm made, and he's trying to find the coin. It takes him 55 years to even get to the middle of the labyrinth. And then when he gets to the middle of the labyrinth, he has to find the coin. He never finds the coin. What he does find in the middle of the labyrinth is a pool of Quicksilver. So remember, at the beginning of the book, when Saeris pulled Solace out of the stone, awakened the Quicksilver in the labyrinth was also awakened. King Fisher hears Solace calling out to him, goes into the Quicksilver, and finds Saeris and Solace. That 110 years of his banishment, of his exile, was him being in that labyrinth. Fisher, he grabs Solace because Saeris had brought Solace with her. He stabs King Belicon. Unfortunately, he doesn't kill him, but he stabs him a couple of times, and The four of them start running into the labyrinth. So the plan is to get into the labyrinth, get into the middle where the Quicksilver pool is, find the coin, and escape. The labyrinth obviously it keeps moving, so they're trying to navigate it. Saeris is in the lead because the Quicksilver is telling her how to get to it. As they get closer and closer to the Quicksilver pool and also to the coin, Malcolm, Queen Madra, and King Belicon, they all appear in the labyrinth, basically to fight them and prevent them from actually escaping. Malcolm bites Carrion. Turns out, Carrion Swift is actually Carrion Dianthus, firstborn son of Rurik Dianthus. Who is Rurik Dianthus? Great question. Rurik Dianthus is the true king of Evalia. King Belicon, he had killed Rurik Dianthus for the crown, and so Carrion, he had to escape to Zilvarin, to the human realm, as like a political asylum seeker. Yeah, he's also like 1,000 years old or so. But anyway, the reason why Carrion rage baited Malcolm into biting him is because Dianthus' blood is poison to vampires. Malcolm should have died when he drank Carrion's blood, but unfortunately, because Malcolm is like such a strong vampire, it doesn't kill him. It just like really severely weakens him. They're continuing the confrontation. Carrion, Fisher, and Lorith, they're standing off against Madra, Malcolm, and Belicon. Saeris, she separates from them. She goes to find the coin. The Quicksilver in the coin tells her that they won't reveal the coin's location unless she agrees to owe it a favor. And she's like, what favor? And it refuses to tell her what the favor is. But she's like, okay, like I don't have a choice. So, yes, tell me where you are. I'll owe you a favor. And so it reveals its location and she finds it. But before she can flip it, Malcolm shows up, finds her with the coin, and attacks her. He punches her through her stomach, like straight through her stomach. So she is literally about to die. She still has solace, so she uses like the last of her strength to behead Malcolm and flip the coin. So the coin lands and all of the people in the stands are released. They're free. Kingfisher and Taladeus, remember the vampire that I said was important? This is why he's important. They show up and they decide to turn her into a vampire to save her life. Turns out that Taladeus can also turn people into vampires. He was just keeping it secret. He bites Saeris, lets her drink his blood, and now she is starting the process of transformation into a vampire. They're going to bring her into the Quicksilver pool so that they can escape, and she hears the Quicksilver asking to cash in the favor that Saeris owes it, and it says that it wants an audience with her. And she's like, okay, of course I'll listen to whatever you have to say. So ends up dragging her body into the Quicksilver pool. She doesn't have a relic, so this is crazy. She could die from that. She gets transported into like the land of the gods. She ends up talking with the god of chaos named Zareth. Zareth says that Fisher is his champion. He said that he tried to manipulate fate so that Saeris and Fisher never met because them meeting would have led to like the entire destruction of civilization. He tried to keep them apart, but fate brought them together anyway. Now, civilization is at the threat of collapse. Like, life itself will cease to exist. The only way that Zareth could see civilization remaining is if he cuts Saeris from the threads of fate. It basically means that like none of the gods are going to be able to interfere with their lives. And she's like, okay, like I don't know, like it didn't really matter to me whether they interfered or not, so just do it. And Saeris has to agree to stay by Fisher's side and fight with him as Zareth's champion. And obviously, Saeris agrees to stay by his side. She is then returned to her body. In the process of her being dragged into the Quicksilver pool and having this conversation with the god of chaos, the god of chaos turned her fae. She was also turned vampire before she had this conversation with Zareth. So not only is she half fae, she is also half vampire. And it's even crazier because remember, she killed Malcolm. She beheaded Malcolm, the king of the vampire court. Because she killed him, she is now the queen of the vampire court. She wakes up, they're literally in Amontreath, in Sannisroth, because they're going to have a ceremony for her to become the vampire queen. And that's how this book ends. Like literal insanity. So that was Quicksilver. Guys, what do we think? It definitely made you want to read the second book, right? I don't know when I'll be picking up the second book. This just isn't one of my favorites. It's not one of the greats, in my opinion. I will say that the world building was pretty good. We get so many details that you get pretty immersed in this mythical world. However, yeah, I feel like some of the dialogue is very cringe. Like I thought Fisher was such a weirdo, like for the first half of the book. One thing I really didn't like about this book is that there aren't enough women. Like there aren't enough powerful women. Obviously we have Saeris, who I'm sure is going to be a force to reckon with. And I just wanted other women in the story to have that type of impact. The only other like significant woman in the story is Lane, who is pretty much the damsel in distress at the end of the book. And we have one woman warrior who is truly irritating and annoying. That's like her whole character. And then Queen Madra, who's a bitch. Like, come on. I like many women being really strong, great characters in a book, and I don't think that's too much to ask. Okay, I'm putting it out there. Another problem that I had, not with the book, but with this book community, when I was looking for fan art, oh my god, the amount of AI being used to put out art of these characters, let me tell you right now, that shit is not art. It has to stop. Stop with the AI. Nobody wants to see that shit. Real fans of art don't want to see that shit. Real artists hate that shit. This is an anti AI book club. If you like AI, get the hell out of here. Boo, 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 boo. Shout out to Carrion. He carried this book. I love that character. That's why he's the only character that I went ahead and fancasted, because I actually I really like him. Again, some elements of the book were confusing to me. I did give it like a 3.5 star. I think that's very fair because there were things that I did like about it, and there were things that were extremely mid. Also, shout out to Callie Hart because she knows how to write some good ass smut. No one can say that she is bad at writing smut. A plus on the smut scenes. Let me know your thoughts about this book. Let me know if I got anything wrong, because again, I was confused. Yeah. Thanks for coming. I'll see you next time. Okay. Bye. Let me take you down, 'cause I'm strawberry field.